Peace. What's the word, everybody? Give everybody a chance to tap in with the kid before we start building on the subject matter. Had to gather some of my read material, man, so that's why I'm a little late getting to the stream. You already know I like to come with the sources and whatnot, man. So how y'all living? How y'all feeling on this Sunday? Man, we got about an hour and some change. Let's go ahead and build on this particular subject. So hopefully y'all got about an hour on this wonderful Sunday, man, to get some building. Get some building cracking, man. How y'all living? How y'all feeling? What's the word? What's the word? How we living? How we holding up on this wonderful Sunday, man? Talk to me before we start talking to y'all. Coon, peace. What's happening with you? Montel, peace. What's the word? FS, peace. What's happening? How y'all brothers living? How y'all feeling out here? Shakir, peace. What's the word? Got a few book recommendations for y'all today, man. Cause we gonna dive into it, man. We gonna dive into it. We coming with the sources today, man. We coming with some research. One of the books, man, everybody already knows it, but we gonna read a little bit from some of these books today, man, because we want to prove a point. But how y'all living, man? What's the word? Javon, peace. What's happening? Montel, man, everything gets good my way, man. Everything is peaceful, man. Appreciate you asking. But we got to start talking about science being corrupted. Got to talk about it, man, because people all of a sudden now, what's crazy is all of a sudden now the world fools with science all of a sudden. And people think that scientists cannot be bought off like politicians can. People don't really understand what science is all about. People don't understand that the person that is in control, the person that has all of the money, they can pay off anybody, and that includes scientists. So of course they can skew results, they can skew data and statistics to make everything look in their favor, to justify their wrongdoings, to justify their agenda, whatever the case may be. But science is something that can definitely be corrupted. Science has been corrupted. They have utilized science in order to further their agenda in regards to the enslaving of Black people. And if you don't think otherwise, then you just choosing to remain deaf, dumb, and blind. You talking about, it's people out here talking about trust in science. I'm going to tell you why Black people, we got to be a little cautious when we make those statements. We got to understand what science we are actually talking about. The mainstream science that they are allowing us to see, brought to you by their paid off scientists, or the real actual science, meaning that we did the knowledge, we did the studying, we did the researching. What science are you trusting when you say you trust science in reference to experiments being conducted on Black people and things along those lines? Moise, peace. Justin, Terenzo, Airview, peace. What's happening? CC, peace, Queen, what's happening? Beast by Bless Zone Out, what's the word? We got a few books though, man. I got a lot of books. Y'all already know the main book. We talk about this book all the time, but this is crucial when you're trying to prove a point in regards to science, the corruption of science, and experimentation on Black folks. This book right here, Medical Apartheid, we already know this book. Got this book, man. Y'all already know. This is one of the main books that we recommend and suggest in reference to this particular subject matter. Every Black person should own a copy of this book. Tony, Goddess, peace. What's happening? Xavier, peace. What's the word? Medical Apartheid. Y'all already know Harriet Washington. Every Black person should own a copy of this book. Boom. Next book. This is like an undercover jewel right here. It's an underground jewel. Look at this book right here. I don't know if you can see it because we got a little blur going on, man. But here we go. The Psychopathic Racial Personality and Other Essays by Bobby E. Wright. Real simple read, man. This book is like 40 pages, but it's a lot of knowledge condensed in these 40 pages. This book is crucial. I'm gonna put it up here again so y'all can see it. The Psychopathic Racial Personality and Other Essays, Bobby E. Wright. Get this book, man. Like I said, let me see the total page count, man. This book might be, look at that, 38 pages. 38 pages of straight information. It's crazy. 38 pages of information. Find this book. Another book, y'all may know about this book, Brainwashed. Challenging the Myth of Black Inferiority. Tom Burrell. See, we ain't coming to play today. We giving people the sources. We giving people the books. Brainwashed. This is a good book. Again, all Black people should own all of these books that I've mentioned, and that I am going to mention. Brainwashed. Challenging the Myth of Black Inferiority by Tom Burrell. Grab this book as well. We still ain't done. Another good book right here. Here we go. Let's see if y'all can see this joint right here. Condemnation of Blackness. Condemnation of Blackness. Grab this book right here. Condemnation of Blackness. Race, Crime, and the Making of Modern Urban America. Khalil Muhammad. So again, Condemnation of Blackness. Grab this book. Lindell Peace, what's happening? Condemnation of Blackness by Khalil Muhammad. Another good book. I feel like I'm missing one, but this another good book right here. American Apartheid. American Apartheid. Grab this book, man. It's going to tell you how they created the ghettos and whatnot. Again, and that's the condemnation of blackness. Since everybody think that we just be up here making up stuff, man, and every time we mention white folks that we just blaming the white man. Now these books give you the game, give you the process of how they created urban America, how they created these ghettos. Give you these process, and then it gives you how they try to use their science to justify all of this nonsense. I'm gonna read something real quick out of this book. I'm gonna read something real quick out of this book by Bobby E. Wright to show y'all how they have used science to try to justify some nonsense. And this was the common belief back in the day, based on their science. So people believed this back in the time where this was written. So let me read y'all something. This is The Psychopathic Racial Personality. So this is this particular book by Bobby E. Wright. It's on page 10 right here. And y'all know Carl Jung. Y'all have heard of Carl Jung when it comes to psychology. So y'all know this author very well. But let me tell y'all something. In this book, it says Dr. Carl Jung, one of the white giants of psychology, stated that white Americans' sexual inadequacy was due to their having to live together with a barbaric race, blacks. Let me read that to y'all again. Carl Jung. A lot of you all have quoted Carl Jung. A lot of y'all may have read books by Carl Jung. Let me read to you what Carl Jung said. Y'all know who Carl Jung is. It's almost like Sigmund Freud. Y'all know these individuals. But Dr. Carl Jung, one of the white giants of psychology, stated that white American sexual inadequacy was due to their having to live together with a barbaric race, blacks. So they blamed black people. They blamed us for their sexual inadequacy. And they were using their science to justify it. So their sexual inadequacy didn't have anything to do with them. They blamed us for their sexual inadequacy. This is Carl Jung. It's right here in the book. I got it highlighted. It's right here, page 10. When you get this book by Bobby E. Wright, we were getting blamed for the sexual inadequacy of white folks. When they weren't able to reproduce, they blamed that on black people. They blamed them not being able to reproduce on black people having to live with us. I guess living with us is too stressful. Just imagine how we have felt. But they were their top psychologists of the time. People still quote Carl Jung. He's one of the top psychologists when it comes to white folks, when it comes to Western America. Carl Jung, y'all know this name, very popular, blaming black people for the sexual inadequacy of white folks. So white people were not infertile simply because the way that they're eating, their lifestyle choices. No, it had everything to do with having to live with us. And it's crazy. We're going to focus on that last part. The sexual inadequacy was due to their having to live together with a barbaric race. They act like their people didn't force our people to come over here and enslave us. So they saying that it's like they was forced to live with us. We were not trying to live with y'all. But again, we got blamed for the sexual inadequacy. We got blamed for the sexual inadequacy of white Americans. Come on now. Chris, appreciate that donation. You say this is why we need more of us in the sciences. Get the degree, but get black funded research of our own for truth as it pertains to us. For sure. And I'm glad you said that, because in this book, I think I highlighted something where he was talking about that. I'm gonna give y'all another quote as well. And listen, here, Chris, this to your point in this book. And this book is written in like 1960 or 1970. It's an old book, but you wouldn't be able to tell. If I didn't tell you the dates, you'll probably think this book was written yesterday. But in this book, page 4, it says, additionally. As a matter of fact, let me start. Let me start here. All right, here we go. Black scientists generally rationalize their investigations as proof to white scientists that blacks can be scientifically objective. On the subject of objectivity in science, this author agrees with Dr. Jacob Carruthers. Again, that's another black man y'all need to study, Jacob Carruthers, who in his brilliant essay, Science and Oppression, look at that, states that Science is not objective, nor is it neutral. A black scientist who moves outside the psychopath's approved course of study. And psychopaths, they are referring to white folks. If you ain't read this book, he is calling white people psychopaths. So when you hear the word psychopath, when I'm quoting out of this book, he is referring to white people. So a black scientist who moves outside the psychopath's approved course of study takes the chance of being labeled unscientific, emotional, biased. This is very important. Let me read that again. A black scientist who moves outside the psychopath's approved course of study takes the chance of being labeled unscientific, which nowadays they call that pseudoscience, emotional, or biased. So fast forward to today, when you go against the science, the mainstream science that they have approved and that they want you to see, you get labeled pseudo, you get labeled emotional, you get labeled you get labeled ignorant, all of that type of stuff, man. So this is right and exact, and this was written 30, 40 plus years ago. Now, reading on further. Additionally, funds are only available to black scientists who support the approved course of study themselves. Again, let me read that again. Additionally, funds are only available to black scientists who support the approved course of study themselves. So they are only going to fund the black scientists. And we talking about the psychopaths, we talking about the white folks, we talking about these institutions. They are only going to support the black scientists who are going along with the agenda. You go against the grain, you go against the agenda, you are not receiving the funding. You are not going to receive the proper funding that is required for your research, to conduct your research. So this, to Chris's point, this is why we got to do a better job of funding our black scientists. This is why it's important that we make sure that we support, we donate to these people that are doing this type of work, because they need funding to conduct their research. So we got to make sure we are supporting these people financially so that they can give us the right and exact type of research. If not, they are going to go where the money is at, because they got to feed their families. So if we got a black scientist, if he's not being supported by the black community, if they not funding him, then he's going to go to the white folks, because they going to pay him. They going to pay him. So we got to do a better job of looking out for these type of people that do this type of work. Okay. Many very competent black students who are naive about white scientific inquiry are flunked out of schools because of their insistence on studying the etiology of black problems, the psychopaths rather than the effect. Black students must be taught that white educational institutions are the matador's cape that protects whites from black scientific inquiry, which would expose an unthinkable depth of psychopathology. Listen, man, listen. Let me read that again. The black students must be taught that white educational institutions are the matador's cape that protects whites from black scientific inquiry, which would expose an unthinkable depth of psychopathology. Come on, man. Come on. They do not want us studying science in the black light, because that would reveal and expose a lot. So you got to make sure when you are a black scientist, when you go into their institutions, when you go into their educational institutions to get their degrees, you got to follow their agenda. So that's again why we always say we got to have our own institutions. We got to create our own schools, because when we keep going to their schools, we're going to keep receiving their funding, and we're going to have to do the research that they approve, which is going to be biased. So for people to act like, again, these scientists are not supporting an agenda, come on, man, there's a lot of evidence out here that's telling you otherwise. It's a lot of people, it's a lot of honest scientists that they have, their funding has been rejected, or they was once getting the funding and then they took it away from them, simply because they was like, you know what, we trying to put the truth out here. We ain't supporting the agenda, because that's not science. But when you come out as a scientist and you speak the truth, which again, the truth is going to disprove their agenda, they like, nah, we're going to cut the funding. We can no longer fund such and such. We can no longer fund Dr. such and such, because they trying to reveal the truth out here. We got to corrupt the scientists. Now, again, in this book, man, just some of the crazy things that they didn't try to justify out here. Here goes another one for you. Historically, the justification for castrating black men was that their animal passions had to be contained. Do y'all hear what I'm saying? Did y'all hear what I just said? Listen, historically, the justification for castrating black men was that their animal passions had to be contained. Are y'all listening? Like this was the science of the time. This is what people literally believe this, and they use their science to justify it. Listen, the justification for castrating black men was their animal passions had to be contained. So they castrated us, and then they justified it using their science. Now, how dumb does that sound? So they would say, we're going to castrate y'all because y'all animal passions had to be contained. And they literally used their science to justify that nonsense. And that was science at the time. So again, when y'all say y'all trust science, what are y'all meaning? Y'all trusting that type of science? Y'all trusting the individuals that presented that type of science to you? What do you mean? What type of science are you supporting out here? For people that act like science cannot be corrupted. Prodigal Son, you say, what's the name of that book by Bobby Wright? Okay, listen, it's The Psychopathic Racial Personality and Other Essays by Bobby E. Wright. It's a good book, man. I read this book like 10 years ago. 10 years ago. Oh, yeah, see, they call themselves barbaric. Barbaric. Come on now. Let me see. Somebody just asked, Lachelle Peace Queen, what's happening? Better Future. The book that I was just reading from was The Psychopathic Racial Personality and Other Essays by Bobby Wright. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just reading quotes. You know what I'm saying? This book is filled with quotes. This book is filled with quotes. I'm gonna give y'all a powerful quote. Listen, I highlight this as soon as I saw it because it's right and exact. It's right and exact. Right here. Let me give y'all this Jew. It say blacks kill blacks because they have never been trained to kill whites. Therefore, it is outside their experience. Come on now. Come on, that's page 3. This is how his book starting off. Blacks kill blacks because they have never been trained to kill whites. Therefore, it is outside their experience. Come on, man. That's the proximity argument that we use, which is the reason why we kill one another, man, because that's outside of our experience. We were not trained to kill anybody but ourselves. That is why it happens at a high level, high rate. We were trained to do this. We were trained to do it. We were trained to do it. But this book, man, is filled with jewels, man. It's like 30 some odd pages, man, of just jewels. All highlights in this joint. Like right here, man, the role that white scientists have played in black oppression should not be surprising to blacks because whites have historically been the planners of black oppression, and as a rule, they never ask why, but only how. Come on. The role that white scientists have played in black oppression should not be surprising. That's exactly what we try to tell people. But again, y'all trust in science. Y'all trust in science out here. And act like scientists cannot be paid off. Act like scientists cannot be bought. And we just getting warmed up, man. I'm going through a lot of these books, man. I'm going through a lot of these books in reference to proving this particular point. I'm on a different type of ground. This is Condemnation of Blackness, man. This is another book by Khalil Muhammad, Condemnation of Blackness. Get this joint as well. This book lets you know how they kind of made modern urban America. You know what I'm saying? And y'all know what urban America means, but this is the book that shows and proves to you how they did that. How they did it. Matter of fact, let me see if I can go, because this is a jewel, man. And they talked about some of the trash white science in this joint. Let me see if I can find. Let me see what I want to focus on in reference to this one. Bear with me, man. I got a lot of things highlighted, man. I don't even be knowing where to start from. But we're gonna go to the contents right here, man. A lot of times, and with this book, the one thing I like about this book, they tell you how they pretty much had to make up, like they made us criminals. This book dives deep into it, man. How they just made us criminals. You know what I'm saying? The projects, the ghettos, the slums, all that type of stuff, man. It goes on to how they just pretty much made us criminals, how they made us turn against one another. Like this book is powerful in regards to that. Okay, yeah, here we go. So let me go tap in to some of these highlights, man. I just want y'all to gain a good understanding of some of the nonsense, man, that has been written about us. Though. All right, here we go. All right, tap in with me. All right, we're gonna read this. America must take heed. Shaler continued. Friends of the race who had not simply fought for blacks' freedom, but also demanded their complete enfranchisement as American citizens, who by blind faith and by declaration tried to fit them for a place in the structure of a self-controlling society, did not realize that resolutions cannot help this rooted nature of man. The real dangers that this African blood brings to our state, Shaler cautioned, lay in the peculiarities of nature which belong to the Negroes as a race. Unlike in our own race inheritance, black brains stop developing sooner, leaving the Negroes with an animal nature unaltered by the fruits of civilization. Let me read that again. Black brains stop developing sooner, leaving the Negroes with an animal nature unaltered by the fruits of civilization. This was their science once again. The results were devastating. Blacks were incapable of controlling their sexual impulses. Here that goes again. This is the second time this came up. Blacks were incapable of controlling their sexual impulses. They were unable to work together for a common purpose. And most importantly, they had no power to delay gratification and plan for the future. This is literally what the science was telling people back in the day. This was their science. We were incapable of controlling our sexual impulses. We were unable to work together for a common purpose. And most importantly, we had no power to delay gratification and plan for the future. They said we weren't able to plan for the future. Their science was out here trying to show and prove that we were not able collectively to plan for the future. This is backed by their science. This is backed by their science. This was their science. This is their science. But people want to say science ain't corrupted. People want to act like scientists ain't been bought off. People want to act like science doesn't support the agenda of the person that's in power and control. Who does this sound like this is in favor of? This is not honest science. This is not accurate science. This is BS science. This is what you would call pseudoscience. But this is what people was believing back in the day. This is what people was believing back in the day. Come on now. Y'all playing with the kid. Y'all playing with the kid. Let me see if I can find another one. Look at this. All right, here we go. Southern lawyer William Drayton, for example, wrote in an anti-abolitionist pamphlet in 1836 that personal observation must convince every candid man. Y'all know what candid means. Personal observation must convince every candid man that the Negro is constitutionally indolent, voluptuous, and prone to violence, that his mind is heavy, dull, and unambitious. This is what they say. And listen, that the doom that has made the African in all ages and countries a slave is the natural consequence of the inferiority of his character. He said personal observation must convince every candid man, every honest man, every objective man. Just your personal observation should lead you to the conclusion that the Negro is constitutionally indolent, voluptuous, and prone to vice, prone to do evil. You should listen, you should reach this conclusion just off personal observation, is what he's saying. That we prone to do evil, we prone to do bad, and that our minds are heavy, dull, and unambitious. That the doom that has made the African in all ages and countries a slave is the natural consequence of the inferiority of his character. Come on. They not taking anything into consideration in regards to how we got into that position in the first place, how they stripped everything from us and then brought us into this new land. They not taking any of that under consideration. No, they just saying, listen, we prone to vice, prone to do evil out here. Our minds are heavy, dull, and we unambitious. How can we have any ambition? How can we have any ambition when back during these times, how could a black man, a black woman have any ambition when if they was caught reading, they might have gotten killed? How would you be ambitious? How would you be ambitious if you doing something as simple as learning how to read? That might be the end of your life. But then they want to penalize us and say we unambitious. We unambitious. If we tried to do anything for ourselves, we got killed. Whole community got destroyed. But we unambitious though. They didn't want to include that in their science. They didn't want to include that in their personal observation. We was forced here against our will. We are enslaved against our will. And if we try to do anything for ourselves, we are slaughtered, assassinated, murdered. But yet you want to say we are unambitious and prone to vice. A white person, a white man in 1836 saying black people are prone to vice is very laughable. Very laughable. A white man in 1836 saying that black people are prone to vice is hilarious. It's hilarious. We prone to vice. We prone to do bad. We prone to do evil. What are y'all prone to do? What are y'all prone to do? Y'all literally justify castrating black men to tame the animal passion, yet we the ones that's prone to do vice, prone to vice. And we got heavy minds. We dull, unambitious. But y'all castrating black men and say, you know what? The animal passion must be tamed, must be controlled. But we prone to vice. That's crazy. And another thing, let me read this again. Let me read another thing. All right, here we go. Now in freedom, many of the experts reason blacks would have to rise or fall on their own virtues or vices, no longer benefiting from American slavery. Hey, listen to that. Now in freedom, many of the experts reason blacks would have to rise or fall on their own virtues or vices, no longer benefiting from American society, from American slavery, which many like Shayla praised as the mildest and most decent system of slavery that ever existed. This is what these white folks said. They said slavery was the mildest and most decent system of slavery that ever existed when they enslaved our ancestors. It was the mildest and most decent system of slavery that ever existed. Let me read on further. Since blacks' vices by far outweighed their virtues. Read that again. Since blacks' vices, this is written by white folks. They saying since our vices far outweighed our virtues, the experts claim, keyword there, experts. These are their experts. This means this is their science. Without the strong control of their masters, the freed men would naturally tend over the coming generations to revert to their ancestral condition. Let me read that again. Since blacks' vices by far outweighed their virtues, the experts claimed, without the strong control of their masters, the freedmen would naturally tend over the coming generations to revert to their ancestral condition, which again, to them, our ancestral condition is a condition of where we are prone to do vice. It's just funny. It's very funny. It's very funny. Let me listen. Let me see if I can find. Here we go again. I'm gonna read, man. I'm telling you, we got all the evidence right here, man. All the evidence. Samuel George Morton, a Philadelphia physician and naturalist and one of Helper's experts, began amassing 800 human skulls in 1820, the largest collection in the world. In 1849, he published findings that the English, the Germans, and the American whites were superior racial groups compared to American blacks. Again, this is their science. This is a physician. They was collecting skulls. So this is real work they claim to be putting in. Again, this is the science. This is how this stuff can be corrupted right here. Chinese and let me see. Let me go back. In 1849, the published findings that the English, the Germans, and the American whites were superior racial groups compared to American blacks, Chinese, and Indians. He based these findings on the volume of shot pellets or pepper seed it took to fill the skulls represented by each racial group. And listen, here goes another key part. Although Morton himself later admitted that he had not accounted for the physical size and gender differences of those who had once been attached to the skulls, a serious lapse in his research methodology, his work was incredibly influential. His work was incredibly influential, meaning it was the accepted science of the time, and he already admitted that there was a serious lapse in his research methodology. But his science was very influential. His science was accepted, and he admitted that it was a lapse in his research methodology. But they accepted his science. They didn't care anything about the lapse that he admitted to have in his research methodology. TZ for sure. I got you. I got you. I'll put the books in the description. Let me read another one to y'all, man. Let me see. Let me read this one. Let me read this right here, man. This is just, it's crazy. All the evidence that we can collect to show y'all how they had corrupted the science, how they done got us believing that we are inferior. Just imagine, man, if you come over here, you black, they done took everything from you. They took your culture, they took your language, they took your story, and they make you speak their language, and then they put out their science and they got you believing it. This is why we are in the condition that we are in. So when people start talking about I'm blaming white folks, no, literally, they were using their science and they stripped everything from us. So the only language that we knew at a point in time was their language. And then in their language, they was pretty much telling us how weak we are, how inferior we are. Just imagine the impact that this will have on a group of people. Come on now. This is why we are in the condition that we are in. But look, listen to this one. This one is really stupid. All right, let me see. Josiah C. Knott, an Alabama physician, once again, a physician, a student of Morton's and the leading American ethnologist in the 1840s and 1850s. As a medical doctor, Knott was one of many clinical researchers at the cutting edge of racial research throughout the 19th century. Much of his expertise came from observing patients in his medical practice, from which he verified, and here goes the key part, polygenesis, the early 19th century religious theory that God had made blacks as a separate and distinct species of humans far beneath whites among his creation. Not believe that blacks were closer to primates than to whites. In correspondence with slaveholders and others interested in his work, the highly respected scientists like to call his research the nigger business or niggerology. Come on now, polygenesis. Look this up. The early 19th century religious theory that God had made blacks as a separate and distinct species of humans far beneath whites among his creation. Not believe that blacks were closer to primates than to whites. Come on, man. Nigger business or niggerology is what he labeled his research. Nigger business, niggerology. This was the science of the time. This was the science of the time, man. But people want to act like we just in the condition that we are in, and they don't have any type of role in us being in this type of condition, man. Come on, man. Stop playing with us. And this one is also about to be funny. Let me read this real quick to y'all, man. Let me read this real quick. Let me read this real quick to y'all, man. This is about to be crazy. This is about to be very crazy. Let me see if I could even look. 2 years before Baker published his widely read book on the nationalization of the color line in the progressive era, he condemned lynching. All right, this sounds good. White dude condemning lynching. All right, but here you go though. He condemned lynching because it degraded white men to the level of black men. Come on, man. White dude, he condemned lynching because it degraded white men to the level of black men. Are you serious? The man who joins a mob by his very acts puts himself on a level with the Negro criminal. Do y'all hear what I'm reading to y'all, man? He condemned lynching because it degraded white men to the level of black men. The man who joins a mob by his very acts puts himself on a level with the Negro criminal. So yeah, lynching is bad because it places them on the same level as us. What? This is why Bobby E. Wright called them psychopaths, because that makes no sense. That makes absolutely no sense. Who are the savages by nature? Who was in the caves? It was not us. But it says it right here. It says it right here. He condemned lynching because it degraded white men to the level of black men. That is probably the funniest thing that I have read in my entire life. That is probably the funniest thing that I've read in my entire life. So yeah, lynching is bad because it puts them on the same level as us. Hilarious. Like, that's hilarious. And I think this is something that I also want to read too. Well, this is talking about how they kind of manipulated the census as well. But when you get this book, definitely read this page, man. When they was talking about manipulating the census, like it was crazy. They tried to they were manipulating the census to try to make us look like the minority. It's crazy. It was crazy. It's definitely crazy. That's a crazy part when they was manipulating the census, man. I might just go ahead and read that little part to y'all, man. But it's crazy. My man Sorenzo, appreciate that donation. You say hearing this, the few, I've been through the VA mental health care system and call it a joke. Now you all see just how much Caucasian philosophies and principles are. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Definitely a joke. Definitely a joke. Matter of fact, let me read this to y'all, man. Let me read this to y'all. Let me read this to y'all real quick. Let me read this to y'all about the census, man, so y'all can see how they manipulate numbers, things like that. Let me go ahead and read this real quick. The publication of the 1890 census was undoubtedly a highly anticipated event. Francis Amasa Walker, superintendent of the 1870 and 1880 census, wasted no time getting the word out in an 1891 article. The colored race in the United States, even before the population returns had all been counted, since only the figures for all the late slave states and Kansas were available. Walker used his Washington contacts to gain access to the data. Table 1 presented the percentage of the colored population, which I do not like when they refer to us as colored, but the colored population from 1790 to 1890. Though the colored population had grown 10 times as large in absolute terms over this period, from 757,208 in 1790 to an estimated 7.5 million. In 1890, the figures more importantly show blacks as a steadily declining population in relative terms. So our population went up, but they showed us declining. Interesting. From the highest watermark of nearly 20% of the overall population in 1790 to roughly 14% on the eve of emancipation in 1860 to just under 12% in 1890. From these figures, Walker predicted continual declines in the future, leading toward reducing the relative importance of this element in the population of the country. He claimed that the fear in the 1870s and 1880s of a possible Negro supremacy. Boy, these people were funny. Look, I'm gonna read that again. I'm gonna read that one more time. He claimed that the fear in the 1870s and 1880s of a possible Negro supremacy, because according to some estimates, the black birth rate outpaced the white birth rate, was unfounded. The facts show that the anticipations which so many Americans have formed of the colored population increasing to a very high point have little foundation in recent experience. So they out here manipulating the numbers because they was fearing a Negro supremacy. So they had to get the black people to believe that the population was declining, that we were the minority. Because if we realized that we were the majority, we might have took over some things. So they have always tried to manipulate the census, manipulate the data to make us look like it's less of us here than it really is. So again, believe none of what you hear, half of what you see. Now, let me continue to read this real quick, though. Walker's optimistic interpretation of the early data has been identified by several scholars of scientific racism. Scientific racism is what they call it, as the Black disappearance hypothesis. The Black disappearance hypothesis. And Walker is recognized as the first social scientist to interpret the 1890 census data as a ray of hope that blacks were steadily moving toward extinction in the United States. This is what they was hoping. But we prone to vice. In Walker's view of the relative decline in the population, a real sign of trouble for blacks was their high rate of mortality, especially in the urban north. Untrained and outmatched by white immigrants, Walker said the race faced a virtual death sentence in the most advanced cities in America. It will be seen from the foregoing data, he concluded that the colored population of the United States is at the present time maintaining its slight absolute growth only by means of a very high birth rate, just a little in excess of a very high death rate. Indeed, in the case of an untrained and ill-developed race, any cause, whether diminution of marriages or persistence, is the criminal practices which diminishes the birth rate is more than likely to accelerate the death rate. Come on, man. They are literally trying to use the science. They was out here hoping for our extinction, and extinction as a race, as a people. They have been on this for a minute, but we continue to multiply. We don't die, we multiply. Prodigal son, peace, peace, peace. Get this book, man. Do the knowledge. Do the knowledge. It's crazy. It's crazy. Real in the field. It's real in the field, man. It's real in the field, man. We tapped into some of these books, man. We tapped into these books. These books are all important, man, and they give you the jewels, give you all the science, and a lot of these things, they saying the same exact thing, man. They saying the same exact thing. Let me see if I can find something in this particular book, American Apartheid. American Apartheid. Let me see if I can find some things in this book that will further prove the point, man. But it's crazy, man. They had to make us think that we again are the minority when at the end of the day we technically the majority. So that's a whole entire myth in and of itself that we are the minority. But they had to manipulate the census information. So they had to manipulate the numbers because they feared Negro supremacy. Negro supremacy. That's why Bobby E. Wright called them psychopaths, man. And I just want to read this part in American Apartheid. It's on page 10 when you grab the book. But literally, it says the black ghetto was constructed through a series of well-defined institutional practices, private behaviors, and public policies by which whites sought to contain growing urban black populations. Again, for all the people that make it seem like we out here just destroying ourselves, like it wasn't by design. Listen, the black ghetto was constructed through a series of well-defined institutional practices, private behaviors, and public policies by which whites sought to contain growing urban black population. And in the book by Bobby E. Wright, he made a very valid point. He made a very valid point. He talked about how they accuse us of basically destroying our communities at the end of the day when we don't even own the communities. So he was like, they talk about black people destroying our communities when the property is owned by the white folks. So they start talking about, you know what I'm saying, the lack of money, the lack of care that we have for our community. Whole wow is not our community. We don't own the property, we don't own the land. So technically that's their community, that's their property. They own these houses, they own this land where these houses are sitting on. But they don't want to talk about that, though. Bobby E. Wright talked about that. Matter of fact, let me read the quote verbatim. Man. This is how we do it. We bring the books out. Look, it say right here, on the contrary, blacks are held responsible. Listen, on the contrary, blacks are held responsible for the deterioration of their communities, even though all the property is white control. Come on now. On the contrary, blacks are held responsible for the deterioration of their communities, even though all the property is white control. So we held responsible for the deterioration, but who owns the property though? Who owns the property? But we held responsible for the deterioration, yet we don't own anything. We don't own the property. We don't own the land, but we're responsible for the deterioration. We try to get funding. We try to get funding from them, man. We try to get them to back certain things in our communities. They pulling the money out. Come on, man. Stop playing, man. We not playing with them any longer. We pulling the books out. Iris, what you say? They have been running their mouths about a bunch of BS, and now they don't want to talk about critical race theory. Exactly. They don't want to talk. They don't want to have this discussion. They start saying people such as myself, we racist. You know what I'm saying? They don't want to have a discussion. Well, we got to have a discussion, man. They think because we didn't so-called integrate it, that things didn't improve, that things are A-okay. No, it's not. No, it's not. Stop playing with us, man. They definitely don't want to have a discussion. They say matter of fact, they blame somebody such as myself for racism continuing on. They say, oh man, racism ain't gonna never die as long as you keep talking about it. As long as you keep talking like this, nah, it's still out here and it's still heavy. It's still heavy in the field. It may be a little bit more more covert, but it's still out here though. It's still out here heavy. Never left. It just changed forms. You know what I'm saying? That's it. That's all it did. It didn't die, just changed forms. That's it. That's all slavery did. That's all that happened. It changed forms. That is literally it. That is literally all. That's all that happened. It changed forms on the kids. But let me continue on here. Let me continue on, man. Let me see. Here we go. And I'm gonna just read little highlights, man, because y'all gonna get the gist of it. We just point out facts right now at this point. Housing audits, this is back in the day. Housing audits carried out over the past 2 decades have documented the persistence of widespread discrimination against Black renters and home buyers. And a recent comprehensive study carried out by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development suggests that prior work has understated both the incidence and the severity of this racial bias. Evidence also suggests that Blacks can expect to experience significant discrimination in the allocation of home mortgages as well. So again, does this sound like something that we doing by ourselves, or do it sound like a condition or an environment that somebody else had a role in creating? What does it sound like? Do it sound like we just out here, we just killing each other, we just doing all this for no reason? We are in the worst of worst neighborhoods. Do it sound like we doing all this by choice, or do it sound like other factors are in play here? But every time I try to acknowledge the role that somebody else has played, people want to say I'm blaming the man. It's not blaming the man. These are actual facts. We are in the wilderness of North America. We got to live. We got to have a roof over our head. You know what I'm saying? So if they are making it hard for us to have a roof over our head in certain areas, certain parts of the town, certain parts of the, you know what I'm saying? How is that our fault? You want to live in a certain neighborhood, but they're not allowing you to. They're not allowing you to. They're able to dictate where it is that you live, where it is that you don't live. They have the control, they have the power to do that. They only gonna let a few of us in certain neighborhoods. So once they meet the quota, it's like, all right, cool. We done met the quota. We got 3 Black people in this neighborhood. No more. No more. We can't have any more Black people in this neighborhood. We're gonna reject the rest of them. We're gonna force them to live amongst one another. That's what we're gonna do. That's gonna be the move. So that's how they didn't got down. But let me see if I can find some more highlights. Let me see. Here it is right here. Barriers to spatial mobility are barriers to social mobility, and by confining Blacks to a small set of relatively disadvantaged neighborhoods, segregation constitutes a very powerful impediment to Black socioeconomic progress. Let's read that again. Barriers to spatial mobility are barriers to social mobility, and by confining Blacks to a small set of relatively disadvantaged neighborhoods, segregation constitutes a very powerful impediment to Black socioeconomic progress. But then they just blame us for it. That's what they do. But this is the key. They confining Blacks to a small set of relatively disadvantaged neighborhoods. They confine us to the disadvantaged neighborhoods and then get mad at us because we not learning at a certain rate. You know what I'm saying? Like, look, you forcing us to be on a disadvantaged side of town where we don't have the same quality books that y'all children have. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on, man. Y'all are confining us to these areas. Y'all are confining us to these neighborhoods and these conditions and then blaming us for the outcome. So y'all force us to be in these type of environments and conditions, and then you blaming us for the outcome. Again, keep in mind that we are in a land where we not speaking our traditional language, we not living our traditional culture, etc., etc. So we already at that disadvantage. So people don't talk about that disadvantage. We already at the disadvantage because we not living according to our true nature. So that's already something that's going against us on top of all of this nonsense. So we trying to adapt and adjust to their way of life, and their way of life is not going to benefit us. And so we done already had to adapt to the way of life that we not living according to our true nature and true culture. But now we got to face all of these obstacles and roadblocks as well. Come on, man. Here, this is also key. The segregation of American Blacks was no historical accident. It was brought about by actions and practices that had the passive acceptance, if not the active support, of most whites in the United States. Come on. Come on, man. But y'all think that we just making this up. Y'all think that we just making this up. Let me read this. There was a time before 1900 when blacks and whites lived side by side in American cities. See, he wanted to point out this fact because they let you know it was constructed. They wasn't liking it. They was like, you know what? It's time for us to create this ghetto. Then it's like by 1970, 80% of black Americans lived in urban areas, and nearly half were located outside the South. And look at that. Ghetto refers only to the racial makeup of a neighborhood. And this is why this is why I tell people, let's be real. Let's be real. When we start talking about ghetto, even when you use the N-word, and we like to try to get fancy with it, well, ghetto, like white people can be ghetto too. Let's do the knowledge to it though. When that word is utilized, when the word ghetto is typically utilized, is it utilized in the direction of white folks? No. When the word ghetto is typically utilized, it is utilized in the direction of black people. So stop playing that game with me and stop trying to justify your usage of this language and you saying things like, oh, white people can be this too, white people can be that too. It sounds good, but when you normally use this word, you are referring to your own people. You're not throwing the word ghetto out there. Because when you see white folks in any type of condition like this, you call it trailer park or something. So when you use the word ghetto, it is referring to your own people. Don't try to clean it up and say, well, I could be talking about white people too, but you're not. When you use this word ghetto, when you use N-word, you're not talking about white folks. Just because they can fit the description don't necessarily mean that when you use the language that you are pointed in their direction, because that's not what you're doing. You're just trying to clean up your usage of this word or of these words, of these concepts. Stop saying it. Stop saying it. When the word ghetto is utilized, listen, the people that made the word, they made that word in reference to us. So when you utilize that word subconsciously, that is what it's registering as. So stop playing with me, man. Stop playing with me. And here we go again. They say white Americans made a series of deliberate decisions to deny blacks access to urban housing markets and to reinforce their spatial segregation. Come on, man. Look how hard they was working, man, to stay segregated. Look how hard they was working, man. They was working hard to stay segregated out here. They was working hard. They didn't want to be around us. They didn't want to be around us. They were like, man, they were like, look, man, we gotta segregate, man. We're gonna create all type of laws, man. We don't like this group of people being around us. We don't like it. But let me continue to go on here. And then here we go. And this is stuff y'all already know. It is to prejudice and discrimination in employment rather than in housing, because blacks were systematically excluded from most skilled trades and non-manual employment. They were consigned to a low economic status that translated directly into poor housing. Come on. Y'all already know these facts. So they place us on these trash jobs. Again, you place us on the trash jobs, we're not able to afford decent housing. So we gonna get we gonna get it how we live. We gonna get what we can't afford. So you force us to work on these jobs, you're not paying us because y'all in control of that. So we got to work these jobs. We got to try to earn a living. And this was back in the day. You couldn't get on social media and earn your living. It wasn't that easy. So you was having to work. You was having to work for their companies and things along those lines, and they was barely paying you. So therefore, now you can't even afford. You can't even afford decent housing if you wanted it. So that's another way that they kind of discriminated against us and forced us into certain type of positions and conditions. They gave us these trash jobs. We weren't qualified to do what they was qualified to do. We weren't qualified. Let me see if I can find. Listen, let me read this to y'all again, because this is them utilizing some nonsense to justify what they be on, man. So let me go ahead and read something crucial to y'all real quick, man. All right. A similar picture of African American life emerges from other studies of 19th century northern cities. In Cleveland, a light-skinned African American. See, this is why we go so hard on these Sambos out here. In Cleveland, a light-skinned African American, Charles W. Chestnut, pursued a highly visible career as a court stenographer, lawyer, and writer, sending his children to integrated schools and maintaining a close circle of white associates. He argued that blacks could best overcome their disabilities by adopting the culture and values of the white middle class. See, this is why we go hard. This is why we go hard on the Sambos, because that sounds stupid. That sounds stupid. Simply because they awarded him certain luxuries in life. He was like, if we just adopt the culture and the values of the white middle class, we'd be all right. This is why we go hard on the Sambos. That type of stuff is stupid. That type of stuff is stupid, man. But it was people out here that was believing this type of nonsense, this type of foolishness. Eric, you, my brother, appreciate that donation. But this is what people, this is the little so-called Willie Lynch stuff that we talking about. This is where the light skin, dark skin stuff and all that was created. Like cats like him saying dumb stuff like that. So let me see if I can find. Let me see if I can find something in regards. Let me see if I want to read one more thing out of this particular book. Let me see. Let me see, man. Yeah, but this book too, man, American Apartheid, man, is a very good book. I want to see if I want to bring up anything else in this particular book. I think that might be it for now in regards to quoting out of this book, man. Like I like it, man, but I ain't about to read the entire book. I ain't about to read the entire book. Yeah, so that's all I want to tap into with that. Now, another book I bring up, Brainwash, man. People, this is popular book, man. Right here, Tom Burrell. It's popular, man. I think a lot of black people have read this book. If not, make sure you grab this book as well. But this book is pretty solid. It's a solid book, man. I read this book also some years ago. And it's a lot of Jews in this particular book, man. A lot of Jews. A lot of Jews in this book. But let me see what type of what I want to read from it though. Let me see. Like on the first page of this, and this is very crucial right here too though. It's a part of the black inferiority marketing campaign is to convince us that we can't handle the truth, that we are better off not knowing. That's something that's crucial, man. Part of the black inferiority marketing campaign is to convince us that we cannot handle the truth, that we are better off not knowing. That's crucial, man. And y'all can just let that marinate on why I'm saying that is crucial. Now I want to read this too because this is also something that I feel like is important. So I want to read this real quick as well in this same book, man. This Brainwash book by Tom Burrell. The illusion that anyone can succeed. Starting off, the illusion that anyone can succeed, because it's an illusion here in the wilderness of North America. What I call the paradox of progress solidifies the myth of a post-racial society. It weakens the impulse to understand or help those still scorched at the bottom of America's melting pot, aka us. It fuels the perception that all is well and racism is dead, and suggests that those still wallowing in poverty made conscious choices to live in that stratum. This is very important. If not, many reason they simply follow Holly, Tiger, Oprah, or even Tom Burrell's lead. They quit belly aching, grab those bootstraps, and go to work. Hold on, it's even more convoluted. Blacks who've been conditioned to expect less from people who look like themselves automatically insert these high-profile black achievers into the exceptional exceptions file. Many are positioned on pedestals with no demands of accountability towards those left behind. After all, these people have achieved so much, they are different. They are exceptional. Some prominent black achievers have actually opened their own Kool-Aid stands. They too consider themselves the exception, and in many instances, consciously or unconsciously, have begun to regard blacks of lesser social status or achievement as inferior. Ironically, in many ways, the progress paradox is an impediment to substantive collective progress. And this is a fact. And this is a fact. Y'all know how it is when the middle class Negro or the little celebrity Negro make it seem like simply because they made it to a certain point in life that every black person should be able to reach that same status in life. Like it's just that easy. It's an illusion again. They're gonna allow some of you all to make it. They're gonna allow some of us to make it, but that don't mean they're gonna allow all of us to make it. So there are exceptions to this rule. So simply because you made it to a certain position in white society doesn't mean that if everybody that's black followed your formula, that they're gonna reach the same level. No, that's not what that means at all. That's not what that means at all. Like not even close. So let me see. Let me see if I can find another little quote that I want to read from this particular book. We already know this, you know what I'm saying? After all, in the marketing world, propaganda is the first tool utilized to achieve a desired outcome. We already know about that. We already know about the propaganda. We already know that that's one of the first tools that they utilize, man. We already know. So they big on propaganda. And he started talking about the Jews, the white Jews, or the so-called Jews, as they call them in this book. So you already know that ain't popular when they start doing that. You already know. Then he got a chapter when you get this book too. It's a chapter called Relationship Wrecks. Why can't we form strong families like this? That's a very good chapter as well. Very good chapter. Let me see if I can find something from this particular chapter that I want to this chapter. Let me read this chapter though, man. This is this big. By the mid 1600s, not this chapter, but this section. By the mid 1600s, with the passage of the first slave codes, slave masters began legalizing the dehumanization of African slaves. All right, because men in African cultures were an integral part of both the immediate and extended family. Branding and breaking any remnant of a rebel spirit in black men became a critical step. So they had to break that rebel spirit, as they say, the rebel energy, as I like to refer to it as. If black men were not sufficiently animalized, dehumanized, and broken, they could potentially cause great damage to the lucrative slave marketing system, as slave revolts in America and Haiti proved. So again, this is why they don't want to see the rise of a black messiah, aka the black man. They fear the black man with knowledge of himself. They fear the black man with the book in his hand. This is the reason. Because they knew if we came together, if we realized our true power, then it's a wrap to their agenda. Slaves had no legal safeguards. Black men were powerless to protect their loved ones from harassment, sexual exploitation, or rape from masters and overseers. So again, we get into the origins. We get into the origins of a lot of the dysfunction amongst the black family. Black women were forced by circumstance to stifle their matriarchal impulses and to abide and navigate a system that left their husbands and children exposed to unimaginable cruelty. Come on now, we get into the origins. See, a lot of these people that be on here talking about relationships, these are the origins. These are the origins. Toni Morrison's book, Beloved, provides but a glimpse into the insane world where a beaten and brutalized runaway slave mother kills her baby girl rather than have the child reared as a slave. Fear was a constant among slave families. In addition to various other indignities and humiliations, slave families were forced to watch wives, husbands, sons, and daughters harassed, violated, or mutilated. Those who tried to protect their loved ones found themselves abused or murdered. This is the origin of a lot of this energy that's out here, but people do not like to talk about this, man. They don't want to have these conversations. They don't want to have them. To my knowledge, the long-term trauma and mental damage to the black family forced to tolerate repeated family abuse under slavery has never been fully studied or documented. Exactly. It has never been fully studied or documented. But again, we just take all the blame that's out here. We just take all the blame. One thing is clear, however, stripping black men and women of their natural roles as parents and protectors and conditioning them to accept physical and psychological abuse were initial steps in the brainwashing campaign. Come on. If early American institutions of commerce, architecture, and religion morphed into modern times, is it any surprise that the system that devastated the slave family also snaked its way in some form into the 21st century? We have iced over centuries of inherited trauma. Instead, most of us choose the easy route of emotional detachment, refusing to acknowledge a damaging condition we don't understand and cannot control. The damage still seeps out. It's notable in the abandonment, debasement, and violence we inflict upon ourselves, our spouses, our lovers, and our children. And he had an example of something that a woman wrote, a black woman. Marcus came from a working class black family, one generation away from the projects. We didn't so much as fall in love, we fell in need. His parents fought and were abusive, so we were really doomed from the start. He was used to seeing abuse, and therefore he thought that was what a man was supposed to do. I was used to taking abuse, so I thought that was what I was supposed to do. Let me read that again. He was used to seeing abuse, and therefore he thought that was what a man was supposed to do. I was used to taking abuse, so I thought that was what I was supposed to do. We were a perfect complement for each other, for a disaster. See, these are the origins. These are the origins right here. But like I said, a lot of times people not bringing these type of facts to the situation. They want to just make it seem like we just woke up and we started hating each other one day. People need to get to the origins. Get to the origins of all of this, man. Get to the origins. Now, let me read this little part right here. For the slave owner, keeping black families united garnered less of their attention than breeding and selling livestock. A key component to establishing the beast brand was treating and breeding black men and women like farm animals. Come on, man. Selective breeding, eugenics. Again, this is their science. This is their science of the time. This is their science. So the domestic sale and breeding of African Americans for slave markets remained legal until early 1808. However, the importation of slaves was no longer sanctioned by the government. Slave owners in tobacco growing states like North Carolina, Maryland, Virginia earned big profits by breeding and selling excess slaves to farmers down the river in the deep South. Come on. The large plantation owners there needed massive numbers of slaves to pick the South's next big thing, cotton, a commodity more and more in demand in England. Black families existed in a perpetual state of instability. Listen, what black families existed in a perpetual state of instability. Instability, dysfunction. So when y'all see the dysfunctional black families, the unstable black families, it is rooted in slavery. It is rooted in slaves right here. Black families existed in a perpetual state of instability because they were selling us off. They were separating us from our families. So this became our norm, but it started back then. But people do not want to talk about that. People want to just make it seem like we woke up one day and we decided to be dysfunctional as a people. Look at all of the stuff that our ancestors had to go through. That became the norm. All right. Any number of circumstances easily separated them for a lifetime. So we get into the origin of what they call deadbeats, which again, this was not our way of life. We got that from them. But when you selling off a father from his children, they never meet again. This type of stuff is becoming a norm. This is traumatizing. This is, listen, man, let me just get on. Let me get on to it. Any number of circumstances easily separated them for a lifetime. Many slaves wound up on an auction block due to their owner's misfortune or death. Slaves labeled unruly were often sold as punishment for their behavior. Even if immediate families managed to stay together, there was no guarantee that a niece or grandson would remain on the same plantation as an aunt or grandfather. The system retarded and fractured the basic sense of safety inherent within the family. So this is where the separation of the black family, the dysfunction of the black family began, right here. Slaves found themselves dependent upon the benevolence of their oppressor, the slave master, for any semblance of safety. This is how we started to depend upon them. This is when we started to look to them for our safety. You know what I'm saying? To earn our livelihood. It all started here with slavery. We did not wake up and one day decide to be dysfunctional. Look at what your ancestors had to go through. This is trauma that was passed down that we have not dealt with collectively. And that is why the cycle continues. And this is another key right here. Listen, for centuries, black women understood that the natural order of male-female relationships didn't apply. No matter how much she understood why her man couldn't protect her, The unnatural code of survival seeded subliminal contempt. You didn't protect me. You can't protect me. I have to protect myself. Come on, man. I'm going to just read that from the top. As empathetic as female slaves were to the plight of their husbands who were deprived of the roles of protector and leader, the fact remained that the slave master was by design a real provider of safety and security. Come on. Oftentimes, she demeaned herself. She grinned, shuffled, and hustled to protect her family. And the power dynamic didn't change after emancipation. Jim Crow segregation and institutionalized racism cemented the rule of law in the white man's hand, in the white male hands. For centuries, Black women understood that the natural order of male-female relationships didn't apply. No matter how much she understood why her man couldn't protect her, the unnatural code of survival seeded subliminal contempt. You didn't protect me, you can't protect me, I have to protect myself. And this is the origin of our dysfunction. This is the origin of us going back and forth. And all of this was backed by their trash science. All of it was backed by their trash science. All of it. And this book, man, it's gonna even get a little deeper, man. But it's not, you know what I'm saying? I ain't even gonna read all this type of stuff. We're gonna bring this book back to the surface. We're gonna bring this book back to the surface for some other discussions, man, for some other bills. Dean, peace. What's happening? Cultivator Sports. You say too many of us are addicted to pseudo power, paycheck. Definitely pseudo power, man. And especially in this day and age, we don't understand how simple it is for us to just manifest. You know what I'm saying? In regards to wealth, in regards to currency, in regards to all of that. How simple it is for us to just manifest whatever it is that we need. We sleep on that power. We sleep on that power terribly. You know what I'm saying? But we still slaves. We still slaves to that dollar bill, man. We still slaves to that green piece of paper. Now we slaves to the cryptocurrency. So we slaves to it all. We slaves to it all. So it went from slaves to the dollar bill, the green piece of paper that's worth nothing. And now we slaves to cryptocurrency. We slaves to it. We slaves to it all. Again, it always just changes forms. So it's going to go from that green piece of paper to crypto. But at the end of the day, it's all still a form of enslavement. It's all still a form of that matrix. It's still them having us under their control. Like literally at the end of the day, that's what it is. But again, people don't want to have those discussions. People don't want to have those discussions. But man, I mean, I literally just provided, hopefully the people that come to the video later, because you know that those are the people that tend to disagree. They don't want to get on the stream sometimes, man. When brothers out here trying to prove a point, normally you might have one brother eventually come in and try to debate the topics. But while I be going in having all my sources, a lot of people don't want to come out of nowhere then when I got the books out here, because we use the books as evidence. So when I got all my, you know what I'm saying, when I got all the material here, when I got all the sources, nobody wants to come and try to debate you then. Nobody wants to come and try to tell you what you're talking about is wrong, because we got our resources, we got our sources. So we can easily prove the point. Y'all heard everything that I read. This wasn't me making it up. This is why sometimes it's crucial for you to bring the sources out and read straight from the sources. You know what I'm saying? So y'all heard the sources. I gave y'all the sources. So again, if somebody is coming across this stream, coming across this video and disagreeing with what's being said, read the books. Read the books that I mentioned. Now, how many of them people you think gonna actually read the books? They're not even gonna read one book, let alone all the books that I mentioned. I think I mentioned about 5 books. And I didn't even tap into the most important book, the Medical Apartheid. But one of the reasons I ain't tapping that, because a lot of people know about this particular book, man. Medical Apartheid, man. It's just so many. Listen, it's so much that this book would be a video by itself. It would be a stream by itself. This would be a whole entire stream by itself, man. It's so much to cover in this book. It's so much to cover in this book, man. It's crazy. But Medical Apartheid is probably one of my favorite books, man. I read this book some years ago, man, and that's one of the main reasons why I don't fool with the medical industry. When I read this book, now there's been plenty of other books that came out, you know what I'm saying, and plenty of books that was before this book. that lets you know why you shouldn't be trusting this nonsense, man. But this book right here was big. Was big. Matter of fact, I just want to see. I want to see if I can quote some things out of this particular book, man, just to let y'all know the type of nonsense that was going on, man. That was going on back in the day. Let me see, man. Let me see if I can. And then, here we go, man. Y'all know Margaret Sanger, man, in regards to Planned Parenthood, man. Let me just read this part in this book real quick, man. Let me just read this part. Sanger also wanted a black doctor and social worker to staff the clinic in order to gain black patients' trust. This is crucial. She assured the doubtful BCFA that the Black Physicians Authority will be limited and he, like the clinic board members, will be chosen for tractability. His work, in my opinion, should be entirely with the Negro profession and the nurses, hospital, social workers, as well as the county's white doctors. His success will depend upon his personality and training by us. Come on. When the Black Harlem Clinic personnel eventually protested their lack of autonomy, the BCFA, which is the Birth Control Federation of America, withdrew support and the clinic closed. But Sanger's experiment of addressing Black social ills with the application of negative eugenics via Black birth control clinics was so successful that it persists today. Come on, man. The birth control pill was developed during an era in which abortion was still illegal, but laws prohibiting contraceptive use also remained in effect till the 1960s, and the distribution of information about contraception was not legalized until 71. The pill was made available to poor Black women free or cheaply from government-sponsored Planned Parenthood clinics in central urban areas, facilities that were the direct progeny of Sanger's Negro Project clinics. Come on. Come on, man. The pill was made available to poor Black women free or cheaply from government-sponsored plans. So again, they making this jab. They telling people get this jab sign up for free, or they try like listen. This starts with the pill was made available to poor Black women free or cheaply from government-sponsored Planned Parenthood clinics. So when they are pushing us as a whole to get something, to sign up for something, you got to question it. You got to question it. The 1967 Black Power Conference in Newark, New Jersey passed a resolution that equated birth control with Black genocide. Come on. And that year, a crowd of Blacks chanted genocide. They burned down the Cleveland, Ohio contraceptive clinic. That's the type of energy that we need. That's the type of energy that we need right there. Antoinette, peace, queen. Appreciate that super sticker. Appreciate it. So they equated birth control with Black genocide. Come on, man. There's so much in this book, man. Like I said, I'd be all day quoting from this particular book. I'll be all day quoting from it, man. All day. But y'all know who Margaret Sanger is, man. Y'all know exactly who that is. Y'all know what it is. But I'm gonna have to do a whole video, man, just breaking down my favorite parts of this book, man, because this book got too much. There's too much information in this particular book, man. They talk about, of course, they talk about Tuskegee. They talk about a lot of different things. Matter of fact, let me go here real quick. Look at this right here. Let me see. And this is how they've been using bribery, man. Listen, the worker explained that Columbia University was offering a safe free test for Isaac in order to discover whether he might have any medical problems. They would pay her approximately $100. This sounds familiar. They was doing this for the jab. And they had something for Isaac as well, a gift certificate for Toys R Us if he agreed to participate. Come on. Bribery, man. They've been bribing us for a very long time. Been trying to offer to pay us to participate in their experiments. So come on, man. So let me go back. let's go back here. Over a decade ago, Isaac became ensnared in such a research initiative tailored specifically for children of color, black children. Between 92 and 97, New York City's New York State Psychiatric Institute and Columbia University's Lowenstein Center for the Study and Prevention of Childhood Disruptive Behavior Disorders conducted several research studies that sought to establish a link between genetics and violence. Again, it's their science. They performed experiments upon at least 126 boys, most of whom were between the ages of 6 and 10, utilizing the drug, fenfluramine. Columbia described the population of boys who were given the drug as 44% black and 56% Hispanic, but this is misleading. Hispanic is an ethnic category encompassing people of white, black, and mixed race, and all the Hispanic boys lived in the Washington Heights area and were black Dominicans. So that's how they be manipulating things too. They use terms like Hispanic. Observed Rudy M. Brown, Therese Johnson's lawyer. The boys were all black, and this was by design. The experimental protocol specifies that eligible participants must be African American or Hispanic, and specifically excludes whites from participation. In 98, I asked psychiatrist Timothy Walsh, who headed the institutional review board that approved the study, why. He explained that the protocol simply reflected the ethnic component of Columbia Medical Center's nearby catchment area, from which it drew its subjects, but this is untrue. Not only are there numerous white enclaves in Washington Heights, but some of the black boys, including Isaac Johnson, were drawn from as far away as Brooklyn. The boys had something in common besides their dark skins. As Therese Johnson suspected, they had been selected because their older brothers had contact with the probation system. Come on now. Although it is illegal to breach the confidentiality of juvenile court records in this manner, a Department of Probation internal memo dated August 30th, 1991 states, we are participating in a research project being conducted by Professor Gail Wasserman of Columbia University regarding younger brothers of male offenders in an effort to identify early predictors of antisocial behavior. The probation department identified them to researchers. This is how they get to creating the jail cells, man. This is how they create all of these jail cells out here, man. This is how they do it. This is how it all goes down. This is how it goes down. Look at that. The investigators claim that by monitoring how precipitously the boys' prolactin levels increased after an infusion of fenfluramine, they could measure the boys' propensity for aggressive behavior. Why not simply measure the boys' serotonin levels? This might not reveal pathology because the blood serotonin concentration might not reflect brain levels. Prolactin, however, is produced only in the central nervous system. They was drugging us up to try to predict violent behavior. Come on, man. We ain't even continue on, man. I done did enough building, man. I done brought enough books up, man. That stuff right there, man, that's like an overload. It'll get you angry. It'll have you in that state to where you ready to go ahead and fight all the white people again, man. Y'all know how it go. Y'all know how it go. But again, like I said, people want to swear up and down when I start talking how I'm talking, that again, this type of stuff wasn't by design. People want to make it seem like we just woke up one day and decided to be this group of people. It's all by design, man. You got to understand the trauma. You got to understand the deception, the manipulation, all of this type of stuff, man. The propaganda that was pushed on us. You got to understand this stuff is real. Got to understand this stuff is real, man. So again, when we start talking about our condition, when we start talking about some of the problems that we face as a people, we got to understand the origins of these problems. So a lot of people are not studying the origins of these problems. They just looking at it on the surface. And when you look at it on the surface, you just focusing on, oh, black man versus black woman. We hate each other. Why? Why? Why are we always at odds? What has created this type of energy? It goes back to the slave days, man, to where they made the black man powerless, forced the black woman to fend for herself. Come on. This is where it stems from. What was the black man supposed to do when he tried to stand up and fight and protect his family? They killed him. So then when they kill him, then again, now you have a widow, you have a black woman that's forced to fend for herself. And as the book said, even though she understands why she has to fend for herself, it's still unnatural. And it still will cause her to be angry at black men. So even though she's understanding, she still has to take on an unnatural role. And simply her having to take on that unnatural role is going to cause her to be frustrated at the man because she wants the black man to be able to protect her. But we have failed because we have tried, we have been killed, we have been assassinated, we have been murdered. Things along those lines. So when they start trying to make all the slaves, all our ancestors seem like they was weak and passive, no, we had plenty of brothers that was not going for it, but they didn't live to tell the story. They were murdered. They was assassinated. And their queens had to fend for themselves after the fact. So if they was going to kill some people, they was going to kill the men first. So you kill all these men, then you leave these women out here with no husband, and now there you go. What do you think is going to happen? They're going to start looking to the oppressor for security, for safety, because they feel like if I look for my man for it, I didn't see what had happened to him. If I put all my trust in this black man to protect me, the only thing that's going to happen is this white man going to wipe him out. Gonna kill him, gonna assassinate him, gonna murder him. So then that causes them to raise their son in a passive manner, in a soft manner. Like if I raise my son to be himself, to be rebellious, to be revolutionary, white folks gonna kill him. So they try to soften up that young son. Hence why you have the condition and the environment that we have today. This is all by design. It's all by design. It's all by design, man. We got to raise our black son to be soft because we don't want him to die. We want him to stick around. But if we raise him in a certain manner, if we raise him to be a strong black man, he might not make it out alive. He might not make it too far. So we got to raise him to obey the white folks. We got to raise him to be soft. He can't be strong. He can't have knowledge of himself. We got to raise him that way because we thinking at this moment, we thinking self-preservation. So the black woman is like, how can I preserve the life of my children? In order for me to preserve their lives, I got to make sure they are not revolutionary. They don't have knowledge of self. They're not rebellious. Because if they have any of those traits, they might not last. They might not last long. So again, stop making it seem like we just woke up one day and we just decided to be dysfunctional. We just decided to be at odds with our women. The women decided to be at odds with our men just by waking up one day. Come on. Come on, man. Stop doing that. Do the knowledge to the origins. See, like I said, these platforms don't want to get on here and they don't want to talk about white folks and their involvement in our condition, in our dysfunction, because that might get them flagged. You know what I'm saying? That may give them a lot of negative attention. I don't care, though, because we got to deal with the truth. We got to deal with the truth. We don't care how they receive the truth. The truth is the truth, but we got to start acknowledging the truth. Get to the origins. That's the only way that we're going to fully heal if we get to the origin, if we get to the root. We're not trying to get to the root. You know what I'm saying? That's why a lot of these problems are not being solved. So we got to start getting to the root. When you start reading every book that I mentioned today was written by a black person. Black men, black women, every book. So stop prioritizing these books that wasn't written by us, trying to tell us about us. Prioritize the books written by your people that will tell you about us, that will tell you about our condition. So we start trusting their research. Every book that I brought up today was written by a black man or black woman. That's who we need to be studying when it comes to our condition. Point blank, period. We need to stop allowing these other groups of people to tell us about ourselves. Stop allowing it. Stop allowing it. And that's just an actual fact. We have got to study. Listen, study your people. Study. It's plenty of black authors out here. It's plenty of black people that can put in the time, energy, and effort to give you these facts, to give you these truths. Study them first. Study them first. Stop going on Google looking up articles that was written by white folks about us, and that's your evidence. Come on, man. Get these books that's written by your people. Study these books. Study these books hard. These are the books that's going to have a lot of the evidence, a lot of the proof. They're going to have a lot of the breakdown in regards to why we are in the situation that we are in, especially from a relationship standpoint, man. Especially from a relationship standpoint. The disconnect is so crazy there simply because of what we went through collectively. So we got to do a better job of understanding that. We got to do a much better job of understanding that. You know what I'm saying? I'm just getting started with bringing the books back up, man. I done went into the archives, and I done had to bring out some old joints on y'all, man. I went to the archives. It got real in the field. It's gonna get even more real in the field in regards to just bringing up the sources, because again, a lot of people like to argue don't have no sources. Got plenty of sources, and I'm going to refer you to those sources because it's necessary. So again, if you disagree with what I'm saying, I'm not saying it. I'm researching it. I'm grabbing these books. Disagree with the books, but you got to read the books first. Oh, Dean for sure. I already know how that go, man. I was definitely deemed the same way as a troublemaker, and I got a clean record, clean rap sheet. I've done nothing, but they criminalize my image. So they look at somebody like me with long hair, this, that, and the third, and my image is criminalized. So that's how they made me out to be a bad guy without me having to commit one crime. They criminalized my image. So they made the image of a black man. And again, just even amongst that is certain images within the black man's realm that they have made more criminal than the next. So again, my image with the long hair, with the locks, and I might want to rock a hoodie, I don't want to rock a suit and tie. That image is way more criminal than all the other images. So they made my image a criminal, or they criminalized my image. So that way it was easy for them to make me appear to be a bad guy without me having to do any type of crime, because they criminalized my image. Just criminalize the image. That's how they did it. Criminalize my image. So when you criminalize the image, you make people fear my image. So then when you start making me out to be a bad person, it's easy for the world to accept it, because you already made the world fear my image. So if they came out with a news article about me today and they made me out to be a killer or something, everybody will automatically believe it, because they have already criminalized my image. They already associate my image with a certain type of person. So if they put my face on the news and was like, dude out here killing white folks or something like that, listen, people gonna believe it without them needing an ounce of research. Without them doing an ounce of research, they go like, yep, dude look like the type, because they didn't criminalize my image. Criminalize my image. They would definitely believe that I am capable of all of what I was accused of without me having to go on trial, because of my image. That's how they do it. That's how they do it. So it's certain images that they fear a lot more, even in the black realm. But again, they can make me appear to be a bad guy in the eye of the public without me having committed any crime. I could be a model citizen. But the moment they accuse me of something, place my image on the screen, America gonna be like, yep, he looked like he did it. He looked guilty. Just off of my image alone. Just imagine, man. Just imagine they place my image on the screen with me looking just like this, hair just long, not smiling. They're gonna be like, yeah, dude did whatever it is they accuse him of. Whole while I'm probably the nicest person on the planet. Nicest person on the planet. I'm basically we innocent, we guilty. You know what I'm saying? We guilty. Like you said, guilty until proven innocent in this thing, man. Guilty until proven innocent. But we just guilty by default. We guilty by default. Oh yeah, just that, like y'all definitely. It's either A, my type of image, or B, if you like a big black dude, man, you tall and you just big. Oh, they can't handle that. They can't handle that at all. Nope. They in fear. They're gonna have to shoot and kill you. They're gonna have to shoot and kill you at this particular point. Oh, wait a minute, you big too? You big and black? Nope, no, sir, you got to go. You got to go. In fear of my life. Thunder, it's crazy. They'll lock us up for whipping our children. And I'm talking about the black. They'll lock us up for whipping our children, but they can shoot and kill our children. They can shoot and kill them, and they can walk away, no jail time, no prison time served. But we whip them hard enough, then we got to get locked up for it. So we leave markings on our child, man, after we done whipped them. I mean, we done all been whipped with switches and things like that. Oh, you got to get locked up. That's child abuse. But they can kill them, though. They can kill them. You know what I'm saying? You get a whooping out here. You know what I'm saying? You get a whooping out here. The black child get a whooping by the black parent. Child abuse. Send the people to their house. Investigate. Lock them up. But then they can shoot and kill us and say they felt threatened by the same children we out here whooping. Make that make sense. Make that make sense. You know what I'm saying? They shoot and kill them. That's cool. We whoop them. Not cool. Child abuse. Lock them up. That's how I go. Like, that's how we go. Listen, I got hit by the switches. I got whippings and things like that. I'm good. It wasn't child abuse. But I'll tell you what is abuse. If I'm walking down the street minding my business and a cop pull up on me and just shoot and kill me, that's child abuse. That's child abuse. But then they could do it, and that's cool. Cool when they do it. Cool when they abuse our children. But when we take matters into our own hands, we got to take the L. We got to take the L. So that's always interesting to me. They can pistol whip our children. They can shoot and kill them. They can do all this type of stuff. They can do all this type of stuff to our kids. You can't even get the switch on them anymore. Let alone if you're a black man, you whoop them. Oh, it's a rap city. You are done. The whole world gonna question you. Whole world gonna like, oh my goodness, he's bad. Look, he's abusing a child. This, that, and third. Oh my goodness. But then they kill us, and okay, cool. And all they got to say is they was in fear. But it's cool though. It's cool though. Most of us we see right through that nonsense, because at the end of the day, it's a bunch of nonsense. It's a bunch of nonsense. We seeing right through it. We seeing right through the BS. Hopefully. But y'all, man, with that being said, man, I think I done tapped in, man. I didn't hit all type of points, man. I done brought up all type of books, all type of good stuff, man. This is a good stream, man. I appreciate y'all having about the hour and 36 minutes, man. Listening to me build. Hopefully y'all get some of the books that was recommended. If you missed the books that was recommended, man, rewind this joint. But man, I'm maxed out for the day. I'm gonna go ahead and exit, man. I might tap in with y'all tomorrow. If not, definitely Tuesday. But y'all enjoy the rest of this Sunday, man. I appreciate the donations, appreciate all the comments, all that good stuff. Y'all be easy out here, man. Again, man, stop falling for the okie doke out here, man. Don't be afraid to talk about these white folks. Don't be afraid to acknowledge the role of these white folks in our conditions, man. We ain't afraid of these white folks. We gonna let them know the truth. We gonna speak the truth to power, no matter who it offends. But with that being said, man, I'm out, y'all. Peace.